My name is Mandy Kaur. I'm a second-year medical student here at the University of Arizona, College of Medicine, Phoenix. I think one of the things that makes active learning so valuable for me is that it allows me to engage in the learning process. I think it allows me to retain information a lot better than just reading from a textbook. And it also allows me to interact with my peers and get different perspectives on how they see the context. Yeah, I think that there's a few things that make them especially valuable and worthwhile. So the learning studios are a great way to encourage us to get into groups, into small groups, and discuss the different cases and questions. One of the things I especially liked is getting questions in a more clinical context, and also seeing STEP-style questions and BME-style questions that I think allow us to put together and integrate information that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Yeah, so there are a few things that make them less valuable. The first thing I like to talk about is not providing prep material. I think that that's a really important thing in active learning. Going into a session where you have a foundational understanding of the material makes a session a lot more valuable and comprehensive. I also think that another thing that makes it less valuable is adding too much information into one session. So there have been a few sessions that I've attended where we've had 20 cases in 50 minutes, and that makes the whole learning process feel very rushed, and I don't think that that helps me really retain anything. It just stresses me out. Yeah, so if we have been provided good prep material that gives me a thorough understanding of what we'll be thinking about and what we'll be discussing in the active learning session, that's one thing. Another thing I like is getting the cases ahead of time, especially if there's a lot of content or a lot of different cases, to kind of review them and on my own see what kind of the high yield or important facts are in each case, and that way when I get there it can be more of a discussion than just reading the cases. Well, I think that getting the cases ahead of time doesn't necessarily take away the collaboration, because if we've all reviewed the cases, we are already coming in with our ideas of what we think could be going on, and that promotes healthy discussion. So if I was talking to a faculty person who was doing an active learning session for the very first time, I would give them the advice that provide us with a foundational prep material, give us some real-life clinical scenarios that they've seen in their clinic and practice, because I think at this point in our medical school career, we need to realize that medicine isn't black and white. There's an art to it. And so a lot of times, the clinical presentation of a case that we learn in class may not be how an actual patient presents. So I think it would be an interesting way and a good exposure to learn some of the interesting things that they've seen in their practice. I also think that they should make the active learning session something that can be fit into a lot of time that they have. I know that a lot of faculty have so much that they want to talk about, but sometimes it's very overwhelming for us and for them. So just to make it the best of all worlds. So in many group projects or group scenarios, there are always people that don't want to speak up or are shy and reserved. And I think that one of the ways to get everybody to engage is for one of the students at the table to kind of see, okay, what does everybody think about this, and have everyone talk about what they think is going on, or have the lecturer come to each table and kind of just say, state a fact that you think is relevant to this case, and kind of encourage it that way. I think one of the things that would make active learning sessions more valuable is if lecturers or faculty did not add new content during the actual learning session. I just think that adding that new content kind of makes the students feel like they missed something important in the prep material, and then that takes over the learning process instead of the actual learning. I think at the end of a session, the lecturer should have a wrap-up. Some sessions kind of end abruptly, and so I think kind of stopping for 2 minutes, even if it means we miss a case, just wrapping up kind of the big take-home points from the session. I think that somebody lecturing in the learning studio isn't very helpful for the learning process at that point. My idea of active learning is talking to my classmates and engaging with them to learn the content, so I think getting a lecture or new material just isn't very helpful for the process.